Hi, guys.
Hey,
Hey, everyone.
everybody. Welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. We have a couple of updates for today. Nothing too crazy. I'll go ahead and get us kicked off for in development. We do have something in every category. This time, I think the one that's probably in development that is going to resonate with most of our customers is private channels in the Office 365 government tenants. So as we know, most things start out in the commercial tenants and then they usually trickle into EDU, or they start in EDU and then trickle into commercial if they apply, and then they go into the government tenants. So it's nice to see the private channels coming into the government tenant. So that's in development there. So we should be seeing that moving on to launching and rolling out pretty quickly. So I'll pass it over to Adam or Sam. Go ahead.
I was just going to say on a side note, my partner Tamara, who works for city government, they've actually seen private channels in their tenant. So
awesome.
She's happy with it. Yeah, it's a big deal for them. There's a whole lot of stuff I'm sure Adam can't wait to talk about with Intune and all these other things. There's a couple things, though, that I will point out because they happen to resonate with us because we're starting to look at getting rid of our InfoPath forms, and do we migrate them to Power Apps or default SharePoint forms and stuff like that.
I'm super excited about some of these.
Yeah, these two things, I'm like, oh my God, this gives us so many options without necessarily having to go to Power Apps. So one of them is conditional show or hide columns in a form. So now when you have that default form, you can actually set up conditional formulas based on, hey, if this field equals X, then show these other fields for this particular logic flow. That is going to be huge because most of the time that's why we were using InfoPath to begin with. So that being able to have conditional checks on a list or library to manage the form that's appearing there, I think is going to be great. That's going to give us a whole lot more of default stuff that we have to do without going into Power Apps. And then after that, they've also got being able to configure a header, a footer, and the body of a form. So this is like, oh my God, now we can actually have a default form that has a header on it with, graphic information and a footer on it. And I'm like, this is actually what I would have expected Microsoft to do when they're going, well, how do you get out of InfoPath? Well, let's give you this new tool. This is going to be very easy for people to work with, as opposed to saying, okay, now you got Power Apps.
Well, it's like Power Apps. Power Apps is like a power tool when I need like a hammer. And
yeah, and this is a good hammer.
Yeah, I just need something simple. I need something that I can just very simple. And if it doesn't do what I simply need, then I probably shouldn't be doing it. And
exactly.
And so that's what I kind of want my end users to have, something super quick, super simple. I shouldn't need all this complex licensing. And guess what else I shouldn't need? Syntax or semicolons. So
I was going to say it had to be semicolons. It was coming out.
There we go. So I am super excited about seeing these. So I think this will be a great way, because you get some of those things that are done in InfoPath. Like how many of those forms are just, I just needed to put a logo on it. I just wanted to hide a field. I just wanted to, and then so we got this InfoPath, and it's like, oh, now we can't migrate. Now we can't do whatever. And I don't want to do that in Power Apps. So now we're just stuck. So this will be a great change for it. So just make it simple, make it easy. So I'm very excited about those.
This will be huge for us.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
So I got
how about these admin thingies?
So I only have two I'm going to talk about today. So first and foremost, Intune role management is being added to the M365 Admin Center. This just follows the trend of everything becoming Microsoft 365 instead of O365. Up until now, you had to go into the Azure portal and go into the Intune section where you could manage permissions and stuff there. They're just bringing this across the stack so that way you can actually have access to this going through and doing stuff in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So not life-changing, no new roles or anything are getting added. They're just making it easier to access it, which I think makes sense for the people that use EMS and Intune and manage their services. A lot of that is Microsoft 365 related. So having them in there is pretty cool. And then the other thing that I saw that I thought was kind of neat, and kind of was something that I thought would be nice, is this is kind of an off one of the random mail things that I like to see. So basically, they're going to allow quarantine messages to work properly with shared mailboxes. So if you had a shared mailbox before and the message got archived in the shared mailbox, it was really, or not archived, but like quarantined in the shared mailbox, it was really, really weird to get to, because the shared mailbox is a technical email address that you can access, but no one's that actual user, so going through and managing it was kind of a nightmare. So they're basically updating that and making it easy, where if you have permissions to the shared mailbox and a message gets quarantined because I think it's spam or maybe malicious or something, anyone with access to that shared mailbox will be able to do the same end-user experience of what you do if your tenant has that turned on for checking your own quarantine and releasing messages and stuff like that. So this is a quality of life thing for the organizations that are out there using shared mailboxes to definitely make it easier. One of my clients, the entire reason they're on Office 365 is to manage a shared mailbox. So for someone like them, like something like this is really, really nice.
That's cool. Well, a couple of things coming to Teams. So they're going to be assigning policy package to batches of Teams users. So doing things so that you can get batches of Teams users done at one time, updating the Teams meeting policy, so the entrance lobby, so you can force users to go into the lobby. And then also making changes so that people can't mess with their profile picture. So if you're in an organization that you want the profile picture to come from Outlook and you don't want people to change it, that is a policy that you can set. I mean, there's pros and cons for all of that, but if you're in one of those organizations, that feature is coming. So Tom, how do you like it? I saved the SharePoint ones for you.
Yeah, I'm really surprised, because I know how you are about news posts and everything else. You are just so kind today. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is something that's going to make our Stratcom area extremely happy. And that is, you're now going to be able to schedule a page or a news post to be published at a specific date and time in the future. They used to have something similar to that when we had our setup in SharePoint 2010, and it was custom and the whole bit. This will be nice for them to do up a series of news stories that aren't going to hit until, say, like this Thursday. So really looking forward to that. They're going to be really happy when I relay that news. The other one, which is kind of cool right underneath it, is the ability to have a pre-publish panel. So when you've got a page that you're getting ready to go with, before you actually do your final publication, it's going to give you a synopsis of the information, the thumbnail, the site name, any missing required properties you may have before you actually do your publish. So I think that's going to help a lot when people are trying to publish things and they get it out there and they're like, how come I can't see it? Or how come I got this error? They're going to have a chance to correct that stuff before they go that final step to publish it. So again, I think those two things where it comes to SharePoint pages and news posts are going to make a huge improvement on life for people who live in that particular world.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Thank you, Jen. I love you too.
Let's see. So also rolling out is the new SharePoint start page. So that's going to be coming out. That one I don't think many users are going to get shell shocked by it. I think they're going to notice, the boxes are smaller and I'm getting more on my home screen, but it's going to feel better. It's going to be a much better experience for them, because when I'm on the SharePoint landing page now, and I don't have the new one as of yesterday, I don't have the new one. I feel like it's kind of, there's a lot of white space and there's not always the stuff that's super relevant to me. So I kind of have to click around a little bit. But out of everything I've seen since they've been talking about it at Ignite, I always am like, I want that new SharePoint homepage. And so I think users are going to just naturally flow into it. It's just going to look different and they're going to go, pretty cool. So that's coming out, as well as free stock images. So, that common core images that we can access, they're going to be made available in web parts to make it easier for people to find images that are available free to use. So I think that's a good one. Good one there. Oh, and one last one inside of SharePoint. I'll just say it because we're here. They're going to be renaming. I think we've talked about this for the last 3 weeks. They're renaming Flow to Automate. So I love it. We get to refilm all of our training videos. So, woo!
But what's nice is you can reshoot all your training videos, and when you put them in stream, you can use the same URL, so nothing will break in the way of your links. Assuming you put it out to stream to begin with.
Yeah, we don't use stream.
So there's two things that I tried. There were two things that I wanted to talk about and roll it out that I thought were kind of cool. One of which I just think is kind of neat. Like, it's not necessarily an admin-y thing. I just thought was kind of cool. They're coming out with web versions of live presentations in PowerPoint. So the concept of this is actually really neat. I don't know how many people are going to commit and actually go through and do a web presentation in PowerPoint. But if you're doing a web presentation, it gives users the ability to do stuff like turn on subtitles of basic, like, captioning of like 60 different languages, regardless of the language that the person's talking in. So like if I'm going through and talking in English and I'm talking to an audience that's in Japan, maybe they understand English, but they're more comfortable in Japanese. They could go through and turn on closed captioning in Japanese, and it'll actually give them Japanese text translated in real time at the bottom. This is one of the things that Microsoft has been showing off for a while at some of their conferences. It's always neat. And you're like, well, sure, in this ideal conference scenario where they have like a professional actor speaking clearly, it works. But from what I've seen, it's pretty neat. I'm excited to actually get my hands on and mess around with this one. But some of the other things that you are actually in there that I think is pretty cool, if you're in the presentation mode, each person can actually interact and navigate through the slide deck themselves without like disturbing the presentation. So like, how many times have you guys been in a presentation where like someone has a diagram up or someone has a chart or something, and there's information you want on it,
and then you want to go back?
Yeah, and then they switch to the next slide, and you're like, all right, cool, I need to follow up with them and ask them if I can get a copy of their presentation or what. So if you're in this presentation mode, if you miss something and want to go back, you can just do that while they continue on their presentation. And theoretically, they give you the ability to have like real-time interaction, like you can add reactions to different stuff and stuff like that. So like if you had like, you know, that like jazzy marketing guy that wanted people to think his ideas were cool, like he could get that feedback in real time. So I think the concept of this is cool. My worry is I don't know how many people are going to embrace going to the web to do this, which is where it is. But I guess we'll see over time. I think that the content is cool. And then the other one is a huge nerdy admin thing that I didn't think was awesome. They are finally coming out into private preview of what they call information barriers. So if this isn't relevant to you, you probably don't care at all. But for the organizations that they do need something like this, is actually really, really cool. The idea of information barriers is you're putting real segregation of different sections under your one tenant where they cannot communicate or collaborate together. I actually worked for a very large timeshare hotel type company at my old job, and when we went through and worked with them, they literally had segregations where certain parts of the company legally could not interact with other parts of the company. So going through and designing who put what where and what they did was always kind of a hassle, because you realistically want everyone under the same tenant because you want everyone to have a @theirdomain.com email address and all that stuff. But at the same time too, like, you're legally not allowed to have people interacting, which makes it kind of hard when you're trying to segregate those people inside your own tenant. So the idea of information barriers is if you have legal requirements to do that, which you see often in like FINRA and HIPAA compliances and stuff like that, you can actually go in and basically say this group cannot speak to this group. And just by identifying those two sections, Office 365 basically puts like a barrier between them that even if the other settings are misconfigured, by having that information barrier in place, it doesn't allow that collaboration. So really, really cool. I don't think a lot of the smaller groups are going to use this, but for the big ones that have a ton of users that they want to go through and manage, kind of neat. And I also think an underrated version of this, I've worked with companies before. I had an oil and gas company I used to work for at my old company that had bought like 9 companies in the 2 years that we worked with them. And every time they'd buy a company, they'd kind of have to migrate them in and stuff like that. But for just organizational wise on their time, sometimes they wanted to keep those companies separate. So even though they bought them, they didn't want to just suddenly, oh, hey, by the way, welcome to the organization of 5,000 users. We're going to overwhelm you with stuff. An information barrier would be a really easy way to bring them into your tenant, to put the security controls and things like that you wanted, but still keep their information separate from everyone else. So cool. I think this is really cool. I'm excited where it's going, just in private preview now, but excited to see it coming.
Well, it's nice to see that when they talk about the Chinese wall that you're supposed to have to prevent like insider trading and stuff like that. It used to be you had to go buy really expensive packages to pull that off, or, cobble together stuff, where now it's going to be basically out of the box, which I think is really nice.
Yep. Yep. Well, cool. Well, moving on to launched. So this is the category of things that have rolled out and are complete. We have a couple of things that have rolled out to the Chinese environments. So this is where 21 Vianet is rolling them out. And so that's Outlook for iOS availability, as well as the new admin experience center. So I don't know that we have any viewers that are joining us from China, but if they are and they're on that tenant, those are now going to be launched in your environment. But there we go. So those are two things that have launched. Another one that we have clearly backgrounds in Microsoft Teams. We're all there. I think everyone in the world has learned the little trick to put your own backgrounds in there. Tom's in the Egyptian pyramids, and I think Adam's in the Resistance.
Yeah,
the base of the
Rebel
Resistance.
base. So
the
this
Rebel
is the
base.
Resistance. We're old school. This is like, wait, hold on. See what we go. See, I like the old school X-wing behind me.
Okay. Yep. Star Wars. All right. All right. Let's see what do you guys like that has launched recently?
So a couple things that I've seen that we have in our tenant, which are really cool. One is the targeted communications in Microsoft Teams. So if you're in a team, you now have the ability to put @ roles and assign those to people. So like in our larger unified communications team, which includes my coworker Sandra and T and myself, we're kind of primarily wanting to see SharePoint stuff, where the larger group deals with a lot of other things too. So by assigning a role called SharePoint to the three of us, if I'm in a chat in that particular team room and I do @SharePoint ... then Sandra T and I are going to get a notification that, hey, there's something out there for you. That works really nice. Like that one a lot. A couple other ones that one I've used, the other one I haven't checked out yet. One is SharePoint image resizing. So now when you're using the image web part, there are options to be able to actually resize the image within the web part itself, so you don't have to go manage the size before you move it in. And that really helps a lot. I like that. And then the page different visualization, when you're looking at version history, it's one thing when you're looking at a list and they say, hey, these fields updated or whatever. It's a little bit more difficult when you're dealing with pages that are a little bit more free form. You're going back to say, well, what did that other page look like? And they changed it and I need to get back. And what did it look like? Well, now you've got a page difference visualization feature, which actually gives you much more information about what a page looked like before it was changed and after it was changed. So I think that's going to help a lot of people, especially if they're not quite sure what they're doing with a page and they save it and they go back and look at it and go, oh my God, I deleted everything. They can go back and figure out which version actually had what it was they were supposed to still leave in there.
I'm going to throw out one in there. This is one of the things that when I first saw it, I would have think like, oh, okay, sure, maybe someone wanted that. But I actually had a client ask for this week. With everyone working from home now, I think this is kind of aptly timed. It's the idea that when PSTN participants join a meeting, you can now have an option to announce them, which didn't happen before. All this means is that someone is actually dialing into a meeting through a phone, so you just have a phone number that's joining, you can have it now announce that a person has joined or left or play a sound. And that's something that, again, like say you're having a meeting and someone's calling in, sometimes you might want to know if some random number calls into your meeting and who it might be based on what you're talking. When you're just in Teams, you can see the person, you can see their name, stuff like that. That's kind of easy to do. When someone calls in, unless you have a whole bunch of phone numbers memorized, you probably have no idea who that is. So having a notification about them doing it, I think this is a nicely timed thing for working from home for people to be aware of.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for launchers. One other thing with Visio Plan 1 and Plan 2 users can do connections with shapes now. So that's really it for the launch category. We have one thing in canceled, and that's file activity in the list view. That's a OneDrive thing. I'm not going to get too bent out of shape or worried about that one. I think the spirit of that was that users could see in the activity what was going on with their file and different things. I am guessing that they found a different way to do it. It's rolled up into something else, or they realized they couldn't do it the way they were thinking. They're going to use a different technology. the spirit of what they were trying to do, which is basically give us more details about who's doing what's happening with our files. That's clearly happening all across Office 365 nonstop with everything. And so what we see happening is as right hand is talking to left hand, as one feature set is talking to another, you may realize, oh, we're doing it this way. And then the other team might come and say, wow, that's a better way to do it. I'm going to cancel this feature and come and do it that way. So
Right.
It's not replaced with another feature, but I wouldn't worry about that at this point and say, oh, now I'm not going to get it. I would just say it's probably going to roll into some other feature or roll into something else. So I'm not too worried about that canceled feature. It's nothing to get worked up about, just something to watch. And nothing that I saw somebody waiting for and saying, wow, my life is going to change when this feature comes out. So I think we're good.
Not so much.
Yeah, it would have been a nice to have, but at the same time, not going to impact me when I don't have it. So no biggie there. So I think those are the big updates for the week. I think we'll keep seeing, we should start to see soon. The other one that they keep talking about and I keep hearing about is the coming soon is the 9 people in the windows instead of the 4.
The Brady Bunch feature.
Yeah, so we should be seeing that starting to hit tenants soon. I mean, everybody at Microsoft is talking about it. I've seen it in some dog food tenants, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in the wild. So hopefully we'll start to see that one soon. I know a lot of classes and stuff like that are looking forward to that. Other than that, we'll keep watching. I think Microsoft is continuing to do an amazing job keeping things up and going. So go to User Voice, give them your feedback. Go to Twitter, give them your feedback, and go to the tech community. So anybody have anything else?
Nope.
I think that pretty much covers it from my side.
Stay safe.
Yep, stay safe, stay home.
Stay distant.
Yep, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
All right, bye, y'all.